Okay, so we're recording. Okay, I'm really pleased to be chatting with about principle number 2, which is give honest and sincere appreciation. This is friends chatting about how to win friends and influence people. I'm sitting across virtually with Christine Adamow. There's so much to your resume. You're a serial entrepreneur, taking things from concept to market for, I think, over 35 years. You have this, we've talked about your diverse sort of interests in everywhere you've gone and traveled. You do social impact investing. I think you're starting up and faculty for Mount St. Mary's Palmieri Center for Entrepreneurship, if I got that right. Anything I missed?
No, I think that's good, Heather.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. We don't want to make me too old.
Yeah. So, we've worked together and on a variety of different projects, and I love everything you've done with your students, and I thought you'd be a great person to sort of be one of the kickoff discussions around how to win friends and influence people, especially since you've dealt with such a wide range in terms of age, both current students and also obviously you're a little bit, I don't want to say, let's say mature, is that the word that's politically correct?
That's politically correct, yes.
So this book was written, I think, originally in the 30s and has been updated in the 70s, and it's both timely and rooted in its time and also timeless. So I think it's really important that, we kind of get these multiple perspectives on making it useful and relevant. And, this is the fundamental techniques for handling people, which is a little bit of a awkward way of putting that. But I still think there's some value in sort of taking what you can use from it. So I'm going to let you kick off talking about, how do you give honest and sincere appreciation as a way of, collaborating and working with people across all the different ways that you work with folks.
Okay, thanks. So as an entrepreneur, I've started a lot of initiatives. And the goal here is to have fun and to make money and to be a positive influence. So I've always approached building anything through collaboration, and not everybody is a collaborator. So the art and science of bringing people together around a common purpose does require sincerity and does require honesty. Both qualities, I think, are not always easy to come by nor easy to execute on. Let's just take a look at sincerity. I like to think that one of my core values is being sincere, not being duplicitous, not being patronizing, not glossing over what really is to make what I want it to be. But that's not always easy because it takes active listening, it takes patience, it takes my ability to sit back and say, how can I frame a conversation that permits the other person or the group of people to engage with me because I am perceived as being sincere in my intention? So I have to understand and be active in listening to how an individual or a group wants to incorporate me, or actually use what my contribution to that meeting or that initiative is all about. If I can't help people see that I am sincerely of value to that event, that person, that meeting, that outcome, then it's pretty hard to be sincere if I can't present my value. I think value and the ability to take my value allows me to then be sincere in the audience that I'm discussing. If somebody doesn't think I have value, regardless of what I say and how I say it, whether I am being sincere or not, is not going to be well received. So I build value. I build some credibility. I build an interest from the individual or the group in wanting to hear what I have to say. That's how I build sincerity. Now, honesty, whoa, that is very, very difficult because, they always say truth will set you free. You can be honest and engage, and you can be totally honest and totally alienate. So how can you give communication and build a relationship with honesty in a way that the other party, the group of people, the event, the opportunity, the initiative can listen and hear it? There's a reverse process going on here. Now I want you, my audience, to actively listen to me, and yet I want to tell you the truth. So I've got to stop and think about your body English. I've got to think about the energy you're bringing to the meeting, to the event, to the encounter with me. Are you positive that day? Are you negative that day? Are you sitting there with your arms crossed? Are you there pensively? Are you there gazing about, clicking a pen because you're impatient and you don't want to be there? All of those cues tell me how careful I have to word what I'm saying to get an honest opinion. If you're fully engaged and you've got a thick skin, I can be very direct. Okay. I'm not going to change the purpose and intention of what I'm saying to you, but if you're a timid person or you're irritated or you're negative, like for example, I went to a meeting today and apparently one of the two gentlemen in the meeting was highly offended by my last encounter with him. I didn't know it. I had no idea, but he was ticked off. And he sat there with his pen clicking, and he sat at the head of the table in spite of the fact it wasn't his meeting. And his body English was slightly ajar from me like this. And so I said, yeah, I wonder when it's going to come out. What is going on here? There's a hidden agenda. Well, finally, after literally 40 minutes of an hour meeting, it was his supervisor that brought out there needed to be a clearing of the air. I realized that my not being straightforward, quickly, and direct, which is my MO, really served my benefit because I didn't understand where he was coming from. And this is a guy who I couldn't be direct with.
Okay.
He needed it softly handed to him.
Okay.
He needed information to be given to him, and he needed coddling. He also needed full acknowledgement because he was feeling besieged, threatened, attacked, and he just saw me as another one of the establishment coming after him for something he hadn't done right, when I had no intention or purpose of that happening at all.
Yeah, I think, that's a theme that keeps coming up is, and it goes back to, we'll talk a little bit, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about, I guess, appreciation, but, making people, getting them to feel like you're on their team. And especially sometimes, I know you've done some consulting as well, and I've done consulting, and there have been times you sort of dropped into a situation and you're definitely on the other team. You're definitely not on their side. And I know you have such heart-centered, for lack of a better word. I love that phrase, almost spiritual practice, right? And when we're clicking, it's almost, it's heart-centered. It's coming from a place of real trust, and, we're talking about us and not talking about other people. So I find that's always hard when you're at the beginning of a relationship, right, with somebody, and they decide that you're not on their team. And so, how do you give appreciation when somebody's already basically said, you're not on my team,
Right. Well, how do you know they don't think you're on their team? And once again, I go back to the body English and the messaging. And I'm a collaborator, and in this particular meeting, my ability to collaborate was actually challenged
Oh,
directly. This particular gentleman could talk directly to me, but I couldn't talk directly to him.
yeah.
So trust is one of the issues that I think is really, really important here.
Yeah.
You brought that up. I think you have to have trust as the underpinning, qualifying agent to be able to be sincere and honest in your relationships going forward.
Well, I don't want to get too down to this, but I've talked to you as a collaborator and also as a mentor. And I love how direct you're being here. Not surprised. But sometimes it's a little bit different as women. And you've been at this longer than I have. I know I keep bringing up age, and I don't mean to be a jerk about it. But I really appreciate, because you've been essentially fighting this fight, if you want to call it a fight. But it comes back down to, in my work and in your work as well, power and power dynamics, and we're negotiating that. And so it's hard when this is a great sort of rule, show sincere appreciation. But if you're sub power, right? If you don't have power, then they don't really care about your opinion anyway. So this can be, and I know you've ended up in, you've dealt with investing men where you're the only woman at the table. So, and I want to make sure that this stays positive, because we're working on our energy, and that's important. But, what you were saying, like being aware of this power dynamic, and, when to just call it quits, because sometimes this is great advice when you have power, like equity, but when somebody just doesn't respect you.
So I'll leave you with a parting shot on power. As women, we're extremely powerful. And I would let you know that a golden rule for me is you take your weakness and make it your strength. And obviously, like you were saying, being the only woman in the room is a weakness. So turn that into a strength. Take all your female characteristics that empower you and deploy them to take power and control in the situation. We are sincere by nature. Women are sincerity driven.
Yeah.
And for the most part, women are honestly driven, because we're the center of the family. So we must be sincere and honest if we want to continue our family relationships going forward.
Yeah.
So take that as your strength, and take being a female in a male's world as a weakness, and turn that into the strength.
Yeah. And well, I'm going to give you a couple more minutes. I'll let you get to the final word. But I think when we come into the mix, right? We get inspired by the sort of the male dominant energies, and I feel like when we can also lead, in a way, model and lead. So everything you were saying, like everything that we're doing, I think it inspires them to start thinking about being long-term, about, being more collaborative and long-term thinking in terms of, family sort of relationships. So I see it as a diversity of thought, sort of growing the pie and really inspiring this really balanced view of collaboration.
Very true. So Heather, I would once again underscore the fact that collaboration is a very rich robe, of which sincerity and honesty are threads. And when you pull those threads of honesty and sincerity through your business, your relationships, both professional and personal, then that robe becomes very well knitted and collaborative, and holds up the fabric in a very strong pattern. So when you ask about honesty and sincerity, as women, I think we value those traits and those qualities. And I think that we need to capitalize on what we do best and what is most important.
Okay. Well, I could probably talk to you for hours, but we're keeping this short. That was great. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to sort of add?
Other than I really appreciate you reaching out, because any of your projects that you're engaged with, I am delighted to collaborate with you because you're so creative and you actually provoke in me a lot of introspection that I probably could talk for hours on, but I had no opportunity if you hadn't reached out to me. So thank you.
Oh, well, we'll do this again. I love talking to you almost as much as, thank you. That was, thank you for your honest and sincere appreciation, proving the point. I love it. I'm going to hit stop now, but we'll